So you got in your car this morning, turned the key, hit the gas, and cruised at 40 miles an hour without barely lifting a finger. To you, that's just a normal commute. You can fly halfway across the world in less than a day, and you honestly get annoyed if the plane's Wi-Fi is a bit slow. You have this tiny device in your pocket that can summon a ride to your exact spot in 4 minutes flat, and you're irritated if it takes 5. We've made moving around so effortless that it's basically invisible. We've completely forgotten that for our ancestors, distance was a matter of life and death. Just think about it. A few 100,000 years ago, that exact same 40-mile trip would have meant 2 full days of walking barefoot through territory that could easily get you killed. No roads, no maps, no signs telling you what's ahead. For roughly 300,000 years, every single journey a human being ever took happened at one speed: walking speed. And that one limitation shaped absolutely everything about how we lived, what we ate, who we married, and just how much of the world we ever got to see. But here's the thing about our bodies. We're actually built for this. Let's look at your feet. Humans are the absolute best long-distance walkers on the planet. Sure, we're not the fastest. A cheetah can hit 70 miles an hour, and a horse can keep up 30 for miles. You? You top out at maybe 15, and that's only for a few seconds before you're gasping for air. But speed was never the point. Evolution had a different plan. You can walk 20 miles today, sleep, and do it all over again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. You can keep this up for weeks. No other animal on Earth can do that. Your feet have arches that work like built-in springs. Your Achilles tendon stores and releases energy with every single step, so your muscles don't have to do all the heavy lifting. There's even a special ligament in the back of your neck that keeps your head perfectly steady while your body moves underneath it. On top of that, you have about 2 million sweat glands keeping you cool, while other large mammals on the savanna overheat and have to pull over. You weren't built to be fast. You were built to never stop. Back in 1978, a paleoanthropologist named Mary Leakey found a trail of footprints in Latoli, Tanzania. They were frozen in volcanic ash 3.6 million years ago. 2 individuals walking upright side by side. It's the oldest evidence of bipedal walking we've ever found, and those prints look almost exactly like yours. For millions of years, that was the only transportation technology we had. And somehow, it was enough to take us further than any other species in history. Around 70,000 years ago, humans started walking out of Africa. This wasn't some massive organized march. It happened over thousands of years, generation by generation, as small groups pushed just a little further into territories no human had ever laid eyes on. They crossed the Middle East, spread through Asia, and reached Europe. They walked all the way into Siberia, crossed a land bridge into Alaska, and kept heading south through the Americas. That's roughly 15,000 miles of walking without even knowing if there was a destination on the other side. And what people don't realize is that they weren't just wandering around aimlessly. Archaeologists have found obsidian tools hundreds of miles away from the nearest volcano. They found seashells deep inland and amber traded across entire mountain ranges. These people were covering massive distances on purpose, to trade, to connect, and to find specific resources because someone else had told them they were there. It wasn't wandering, it was prehistoric networking on foot. But walking only takes you so far. You can walk across a desert or over a mountain pass, but a river? A river stops you dead in your tracks. And back then, rivers were everywhere, cutting right through every migration route and hunting ground. For hundreds of thousands of years, water was a literal wall. You either found a shallow spot to cross or you turned around. But then, humans figured out something no other land animal ever has: how to cross water on purpose. In 2003, archaeologists on the island of Flores in Indonesia found stone tools from about 800,000 years ago. Here's the catch. Flores has never been connected to the mainland. Even during the deepest ice ages when sea levels dropped, there was always at least 12 miles of open ocean between that island and the nearest coast. Which means one thing: someone made the crossing. We don't know what they used. Wood rots and bamboo break down, so whatever floated is long gone. But the tools prove they made it. The first boats probably weren't even invented. They were discovered. Someone grabbed a floating log to cross a river, realized they didn't drown, and that was the breakthrough. But what came next was completely intentional. Around 65,000 years ago, humans crossed from Southeast Asia to Australia. That meant sailing through at least 60 miles of open ocean. You can't see Australia from the other side. You don't just drift there by accident. Someone built something that could float, pointed it toward a horizon they couldn't see past, and started paddling. Think about that. They left solid ground with absolutely no promise that anything was on the other side. The oldest boat we've ever actually found is the Pessie canoe in the Netherlands, which is about 10,000 years old and basically just a hollowed-out log. But the tech goes back way further. People were living on isolated islands tens of thousands of years before that canoe was ever carved. And then, the Polynesians took things to a whole new level. Starting around 3,000 years ago, they conquered the Pacific Ocean, the biggest body of water on Earth. They built massive double-hulled canoes, packed up their families, crops, and animals, and sailed thousands of miles using nothing but the stars, the rhythm of the ocean swells, the color of the clouds, and the flight paths of birds. No compass, no maps, just pure, razor-sharp observation. They hit Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, every single habitable island in the Pacific, sometimes covering 2,500 miles of open water with absolutely nothing in sight. So walking conquered the land, and boats conquered the water. But we still had a major problem: weight. You can walk 20 miles, sure, but you can't walk 20 miles carrying a 200-pound animal you just hunted. For most of human history, the real bottleneck wasn't how far you could go, but how much you could carry. Your body can only handle about 40 to 60 pounds before it starts breaking down. So we started finding workarounds. First, we dragged things. You kill something big, throw it on a heavy hide, and haul it back to camp. We know this because of the specific wear marks found on ancient leather. Then came a better idea: the travois. It's two long poles tied into a V shape with a platform slung in the middle. You pull the narrow end, and the wide end slides along the ground, spreading out the weight. Suddenly, one person could move over 100 pounds. The wild part is, because they were made of wood and leather, almost none of them survived. The only reason we even know they existed is because people were still using them thousands of years later when Europeans arrived in the Americas. But the real game changer wasn't something we built, it was someone we befriended. Around 15,000 years ago, we domesticated dogs, our very first partners. And one of their first jobs was hauling our stuff. In the Arctic, dogs pulled sleds across the ice. A single dog could move about 45 pounds, and a team of 6 could carry a family's entire camp. But dogs are small. We needed more power, and we found it about 5,500 years ago on the steppes of Kazakhstan, when humans finally figured out the horse. We know this thanks to an ancient group called the Botai. Archaeologists found distinct wear marks on horse teeth from bits, meaning someone was controlling them, and they even found traces of mare's milk cooked into old pottery. These people didn't just hunt horses, they rode them, milked them, and built their whole world around them, and the horse changed everything. For 300,000 years, the fastest a human could go was walking speed, about 4 miles an hour. On a horse, you could hit 30. In a single generation, the human world got 8 times smaller. Suddenly, you could cover in days what used to take weeks. News traveled faster, trade routes stretched further, and warfare changed forever because an army on horseback could catch you completely off guard. Donkeys hauled goods through deserts, camels conquered the Sahara, reindeer pulled sleds through the Arctic, and llamas carried cargo up the Andes. Wherever we went, we found an animal that fit the landscape and put it to work. But we still weren't done. There was one last major breakthrough, and honestly, it took an embarrassingly long time to show up. Think about this. Humans crossed entire oceans before anyone invented the wheel. The oldest wheel we know of was found in Slovenia, and it's only about 5,200 years old. That's it. Boats go back at least 10,000 years. Horses were tamed 5,500 years ago, and we sailed to Australia 65,000 years before that. The wheel was one of the last big transport inventions, not the first, and it didn't even start as a way to get around. The first wheels were for pottery, just a spinning disc to shape clay. But at some point, someone looked at that disc, flipped it on its side, and wondered what would happen if they put something heavy on top of it. Those first wheeled vehicles were slow and incredibly heavy, with solid wood wheels that cracked on rough ground and got stuck in the mud. Honestly, a horse on its own was way faster than a horse pulling one of those early carts. But around 2000 BC, someone came up with the spoked wheel, lighter, stronger, and way faster. Suddenly you had chariots, combining speed and cargo for the first time. Roads naturally followed. The first paved road we know of was built around 4000 BC. And once you combined wheels, roads, and horses, you finally had a real transportation system. Trade exploded, empires became possible, and you could move armies and supplies hundreds of miles without everything falling apart. The wheel, the horse, the road. That's the exact combination that built every civilization you've ever heard of. So here's the big picture. For 300,000 years, we had nothing but our own two legs, and we used them to walk across the entire planet. When we hit water, we figured out how to float. When we needed to carry more, we learned how to drag, built frames, and eventually partnered with animals. We mastered the horse, and the world shrank overnight. We invented the wheel, and it shrank again. Every single one of these breakthroughs took thousands of years, each one building on the last, solving problems that probably seemed completely impossible to the generations before. Cut to today. You sit in a comfortable metal box on a paved highway doing 70 miles an hour, and you call it a frustrating commute. You fly 3,000 miles across an ocean in 6 hours and complain that the Wi-Fi is slow. You've got a machine in your pocket that can summon a car to your exact location in 4 minutes, and you're annoyed it takes 5. Your ancestors walked barefoot for 15,000 miles across continents they didn't even have names for, just to reach places they'd never seen. And they did it because they had to, because staying still meant dying. We've solved the problem of distance so completely that we've forgotten it was ever a problem in the first place. Every highway, every airport, every single set of train tracks on this planet exists because 300,000 years ago, someone looked out at the horizon and just started walking. They had no idea where they were going, but they went anyway. And honestly, that is the most human thing there is.